Keith Waring was just re-elected to Charleston City Council to serve the residents of District 7. He tells me what issues he wants to tackle for the residents of District 7 in this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Keith Waring, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Always pleased to be in your presence.
I appreciate it greatly. I appreciate that. Obviously, you were reelected to be on Charleston City Council to represent District 7.
Yes.
What is it like to be you these days?
Same as it was yesterday. I don't really, I tell you what, it's always a pleasure when people give you the opportunity to serve. See, one of the things that I never want to fall prey to, I think that a seat on office is a personal possession. It's actually a privilege that's bestowed upon you by your community. And, you know, for the third time, I was graced with that privilege to serve again. So I'm grateful.
The third time, what can we expect from you?
Much of the same, because fiscally, I always look at other people's money with a high degree of respect. And that's what the taxpayers' dollars is. When you use, you know, when people pay their taxes, they don't expect you to waste it. I've had the privilege in my church of doing collections.
Right.
And when you see the different people that put monies in that basket, I mean, from little kids put money in maybe for the first time that their parents let them do it, all the way to the senior most of our citizens taking of their retirement dollars and putting what they can in to keep the church going. It works very similarly with our property taxes. You just don't pass a basket and see it, but that's where the dollars come from one end of the community to the other. So we can't, I don't like to see other people's money wasted, squandered. So I speak up when I see it happen.
What are you speaking up now when it comes to tax dollars in District 7?
Well, in District 7, like other places, we have drainage issues. But the more important issue, we just had a big election fought over drainage, but we have a number of issues that are high priority. Affordable housing being another one. The affordable housing piece is almost a crisis. And if we don't, if you keep doing things the same way, you're going to get the same results, right? That's kind of like the definition of insanity. We are trying to create affordable housing in a rising market. In other words, housing prices are steadily going up. And we try to create the affordability on housing the same way we did maybe 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And you just simply have to think outside the box. You have to take a private sector view of that and not a government view of that.
What else are you doing when you look at that rising market in the housing?
See, you have to look at the components of how you go about building a house. Well, one of the things you have to do is get a piece of land, okay? And land costs money. A lot of money in a rising market. So one thing you can do to spread that cost out is slice the land like you would a pie, slice the land in smaller pieces. So the land cost won't be as much on a particular house. Mm. We have a rule in the city of Charleston that says each lot has to have at least 50 feet frontage or you can't build a house. Or you have to get an exception to that.
Right.
But if you look at some of the most successful areas in the city of Charleston, you've got small lots. You had something called freedmen colleges years ago. And a freed slave would get monies from earnings, get a little plot of land, and build a house that they can afford. You can't do that in the city of Charleston right now. We have legislated to the point to where we made that against the law. Why? That's needed to change. We have a proposal before council to change that. And you look at some of the most highly coveted places. Look at Ansonbar, the French Quarter, right. Harleston Village. Right. All of them have small lots. All of them have small lots. So we need to do that over the remainder of the city in certain pockets. In particular, West Ashley and District 7 affords the opportunity for something called infill. Lots that are undeveloped, being built upon, and hopefully being built upon at an affordable cost.
And that actually begins the conversation of what we talked about in the past couple of interviews, free board.
Free board plus, that's my favorite subject.
Right.
I think with the turnover in council now, I think there's a learning curve, and that the new people on council seem eager to do their homework, which is very encouraging. I mean, I've had the experience of serving in years past with a couple members of council that they never even opened their package until they came to the meeting. So you can actually hear them opening up the meeting material when they sat down. Well, that meant to me they didn't do their homework. Okay, if you don't study your package and you don't study the issues, you're just going to role play it when you get to the meeting. People deserve better than that. Actually, those people were replaced. So that happened about 8 years ago, 7 years ago. The people who left were good stewards. Bill Moody is a lifelong friend of mine, right? A virtually lifelong friend of mine, and will be a friend of mine. He's like family. Councilman Lewis,
Right.
I mean, who doesn't love Councilman Lewis and all his experiences? So Councilman Wagner, right, and the like, good people. So, but smart people have come on in their place, and they look to be, they've impressed me with their eagerness to get to work and get up to speed, so they won't be laggards on council. So we'd have 12 people moving in hopefully the right direction.
And how up to speed are they with Freeport plus 3?
They're doing their homework right now. As a matter of fact, one of the things at the last meeting was we were going to vote on it, and the vote was, and upon reflection, it was the right vote, was deferred so some of the new members could study up on it. So in 2 weeks, hopefully it'll be back in front of us.
And how many votes do you expect to get on that?
Well, anytime you got a majority, that's good, right?
Yes, sir.
Listen, there's no real issue with
Okay.
new construction.
Okay.
Going freeboard plus 2 or FEMA plus 2 feet.
Right.
The real issue is the existing house.
Mm.
And those people don't know what's about to happen to them. In other words, if you live in a house that was built before 1978, 1978 or 9, that's when FEMA was founded.
Right.
So that means your house more than likely is not to the FEMA height standard. There are a lot of houses in the city of Charleston and the county of Charleston that were built before 1979.
Right.
Well, if we were to have a big catastrophic event, and let's say houses were destroyed but not by flood, any house that was destroyed by 50% or more, in addition to making those repairs, would have to be jacked up. And it's my belief, and I definitely don't believe I'm wrong, most people don't have the money to jack up their houses, in particular after the tragedy. Hurricane, a tornado like hit Nashville last night. Obviously, an earthquake fault. Yeah. Certain type damages were to hit. Fixing the home so people can move back in would be a high priority. And I don't think anybody has actually role played this to say, well, listen, if you jack the houses up, how many companies that actually are in the city of Charleston that do that kind of work? 3, 4, 5, 6. If you got thousands of houses that need to be lifted up, you're going to have a lot of houses boarded up for a long period of time until those companies can get to them. And I've never seen a house that's on a slab that's been lifted up or jacked up. I'm not saying it can't be done. I've never seen that. Mm. Now, this country's put a man on the moon and brought him back. So from an engineering standpoint, I'm thinking it could be done, but I also think the cost would be prohibitive.
What would be the costs on the city side?
Well, the city doesn't have any money to pay for that. And that's the thing. We have some on council, 1 or 2 on council that's saying, maybe even in the newspaper, saying the city can come up with a fund. Our total budget is about $220 million, give or take $1 million. If we put all of that, that wouldn't be enough to lift up these houses that would potentially be damaged. Think of Hugo.
Yes.
Most of the damage in the houses were down by trees and wind. It wasn't flood. It wasn't flood at all. If this rule were in place then, many of the people would not have been able to move back in their homes because they wouldn't have had the money to lift it or jack the house up. What that leads to is during the time of catastrophe, those houses get boarded up, people sell as is, people with larger incomes come in, tear those houses down, and build newer homes or McMansions. I don't know, but higher dollar homes. Mm-hmm. Communities get displaced, cultures get removed. So we've seen that before. We saw that with Ansonbar when after Hugo, the public houses flooded. Right. That whole community moved and has never been replaced, not by similar backgrounds of people. So can you imagine that happened to a public housing development? Can you imagine that happening to a city? And the superstorms that we have today, that's a real possibility. That it's not a section of town, the whole town gets blasted by these superstorms. We've been fortunate, very fortunate since Hugo, but that's not a management plan to see, the campaigns are over. Now that the campaigns are over, you have to govern. And hopefully you govern with the best of your intellect and intelligence, not with sound bites.
How is this mayor doing right now in your mind?
I think he's gotten off to a good start. You know, your first term certainly is a learning term. And I think you'd ask him, I don't need to put words in his mouth, but I think he would say he learned a lot over the first 4 years.
I will definitely ask Mayor Rowley when I see him next.
Mayor Rowley or Mayor Technical?
But let me get back to obviously with Freeport plus Fleet. When it comes to existing houses, how many are there left in District 7?
I mean, existing houses are left. I mean, there are thousands of them.
Okay.
I mean, thousands of them. Each district right now has about, I don't know, 11, 12,000 people. So, but those houses, I represent a district that's primarily a well-established district. Those houses, the majority of houses in the district that I represent is probably 30, 40 years old, easy. Certainly, as I said before, the majority of houses in Charleston County were built before 1970. That's right. And you see, it's just not the city of Charleston that's wrestling with this issue. I think you have the county, and you have towns like Mount Pleasant that have passed these things and not thought if existing houses who are below the city's guidelines, but maybe even meet FEMA's guidelines. FEMA's at 13 and a half. Mm. So let's say you have a house that's at 13 and a half that sustains 50% plus $1 worth of damage. FEMA's going to say you can fix that house back. But the city of Charleston, the county of Charleston, and the town of Mount Pleasant is going to say, nope, you can't fix that house back unless you jack it up another 2 feet. And then the homeowner says, where do I get that money from? And where do I live in the meantime? Because you only have less than a half a dozen companies that actually are in that industry. So you got to wait your turn. The town would look like the Ninth Ward, and I visited the Ninth Ward in New Orleans. You just have a proliferation of houses and buildings that would be boarded up until I guess they could be jacked up and worked on. The practical aspects of thought processes haven't been applied. Sounds good on paper. And then some says, well, you get a 5% maybe deduction on your flood insurance. But nobody told you how much your homeowner's insurance is going to be. Flood may go down, but homeowner's insurance is going to go up. Because if they're going to cover that, you have to have a separate provision or endorsement on your homeowner's policy to cover jacking up or lifting of a home.
Well then, if City Council were to go back, and if they had the power to do this, what would you add to those guidelines?
So you asked me if I was king for the day, what I would do? I agree with ounce of prevention. So if you're building a new house, certainly build it higher. That is the most affordable time to do it. But when it comes to the existing homes, I think they should only have to be lifted if the damage occurred because of flooding. If your house caught a fire, or if a tree decides it's old enough and it's going to fall through the roof, or we had a cloud burst of hail,
Right.
and it did big damage to your house, um, I don't think you should have to jack the house up because your house didn't flood. And so we have a lot of areas in the city of Charleston that flood, not because necessarily of sea level rise, it's because of inefficient drainage system. And we've known that since 1984, when the city did a massive drainage study for the whole city. Some of the solutions that those study called for have yet to be implemented. We just didn't have the money to do it. I'm not pointing the finger and blaming anybody. We didn't increase taxes to get the revenue to put the updated and more efficient drainage system in place. And those inefficient drainage systems are in the older neighborhoods. So it's in the Burns Down.
Right.
It's in the South Windermere.
Right.
It's in the Moreland area. It's in the Maryville, the Ashleyville, the Orleans Woods. It's in the Linnevar area. It's in Ardmore and Sherwood Forest. And we know that. So some of the houses over there that may flood is not because the tide rising. Some of those houses will flood on when the tide is out, but we get 4 or 5 inches in a cloud burst. And that's because the pipes aren't large enough and the ditches aren't there for the water to drain off. We know that. So some of these houses are subject to flood because of infrastructure that has been called for from 1984. That's 46 years that had yet to be installed. That's not the homeowner's fault. So to require that type of expense to lift a person's home would be an unfunded mandate, not by Washington, D.C., or not by even Columbia, our state government. Right? It's going to be by the government that's most closest to you, which civics tells us is the most effective. In this case, it'd be the municipal government.
If you were to increase taxes in 2020, how would that affect your district?
Well, anytime you increase taxes, it's a direct expense to the homeowner, the individual. So that's why when you do it, should you do it, you better have a very good reason to do it, because it hurts, in particular, people of modest means, and certainly people on fixed incomes the most.
Let me go down the street here to Citadel Mall.
Mm-hmm.
What does that feature look like in your mind?
Well, the future is certainly is looking brighter over there. Now the city has yet to invest over there as it did Charleston Place. Remember, Charleston Place was a big revitalization project. And in some terms, Citadel Mall certainly can be a catalyst for some of the revitalization that needs to take place west of Ashley, which is the largest geographical area in the city of Charleston. The J.C. Penney, as you know, recently was renovated into the beautiful outpatient facility for MUSC. And if you haven't done a walkthrough, please do it. It's beautiful. You'd never know it was once a J.C. Penney. Right? But what that does is that brings people into the area, which helps commerce. Mm. They got a lot more space that they need to revitalize. And normally, government should help through some sort of incentive. We have yet to do that.
Why?
Well, some of the needs from the developer had been specific. We know some will be in the form of, again, better drainage systems over there, because it is at the hub of, it's almost at the intersection of where a lot of drainage West Ashley goes eventually out to the Stoner. Right. So government will be able to, city government should be able to help with that. We passed a TIF maybe probably 3 years ago now. But until you get some revitalization, there's not a whole lot of money going into it yet. When that happens, then we'll have monies to improve some of the drainage projects and hopefully infrastructure. But can the city do better? It's not only my contention. Others know that we can do better. And that's coming from the mayor on down. I would doubt that he would say we can't do better. Working with him, I'm sure he would say we can do better.
And obviously, how much money do you expect to come in for the drainage for that particular area in Citadel Mall?
Well, you're talking about estimates. When we first spoke about it, this was on the Mayor Riley,
Sure.
and then continued under Mayor Teckenberg. The figure was around 60 to 80 million. But when it comes to doing infrastructure, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. The September Clark drainage project is over 200 million, and that's just one drainage project. So obviously, but I will say this: the drainage projects west of the Ashley tend to be, every last one of them, maybe with the exception of Church Creek, there's a drainage gravity flow project, which are much more affordable than when you have to dig shafts that are 160 feet down, and build big pump stations and the like. So you probably can take $100 million and you can almost fix everything West Ashley and maybe even on James Island. Whereas some of the projects on the peninsula are going to take hundreds of millions of dollars. And that would be the great debate that's going to take place because, frankly, we should have major drainage projects going on all over the city as opposed to one area and having to remain to wait. Because it's just not fair.
Let me get back to Citadel Mall. How clear do you want the developer to be with his plans?
Well, the developer, it just makes sense for him to be clear because if he's not clear with his plans, bad communication has a domino effect. So he's clear with his plans. It makes it easier for government to figure out its role. If he's unclear, then you're going to have a clouded effect throughout the process. So I would think that their plans are beginning to crystallize over there.
Okay, that's great.
Again, he definitely has a willing attitude for everybody willing to work.
Okay.
It's a matter of whether we can afford it.
When can we expect the vote?
No, I said it's a matter of whether we can afford it.
Afford it.
Yeah, so there's no vote that I know of.
Right. And when can we expect to get this money?
Money from Citadel Mall?
Yes, sir.
That's going to be over a period of, frankly, it'll be at least a decade. It's going to come in slow amounts over the next 10 years, but again, a lot of that's based in the private market. Hopefully, the attractiveness of the location, because businesses were there once,
right,
and for various reasons they left, and now you're trying to improve that environment to bring them back again. So we'll see.
We'll see. And obviously, there's still good news with 526.
It's very good news with 526. It's controversial in the neighborhood and in the community, but we need to finish 526. I've been a big proponent of 526. Right. Continuing from here to Johns Island and James Island, we need to finish the regional road. And when I say that, I can't think of a part of 526 that's completed, that's not utilized to a high degree. So it will be a road to nowhere. When you finish it, they will come and people will use it.
And how much money is the city putting towards that right now?
526?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's a state project,
right.
State and county project. See, when the monies for the half-cent sales tax come in for transportation, that doesn't really come to the city. Okay. The city doesn't tax you for transportation, or even the gas tax. Those dollars goes to the state and get allocated out to the various 46 counties, and then from those counties to municipalities.
Okay.
For the most part, that's the Florida dollars. So when you look at your property tax bill from the city of Charleston, you won't see anything on there for transportation. Okay. You see police police, fire,
Right.
recreation,
Right.
etc. Those kind of things.
Okay, good to know. Well, Councilman Keith Waring, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Post Ups.
Always good to see you.
Likewise.
Pleasure's mine.
Well, thank you
Take
greatly.
care. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.